Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, over the globe. This is very exciting to see a record high number of participants in this event. My name is Edward Wang, one of the 18 founding member of OTEA, Overseas Taiwanese Association. On behalf of OTEA, we look for like-minded individual and viewer like you to collectively promote Taiwan engineers in civil construction to connect with the world. This platform allows Taiwanese engineers to understand the differences in international engineering practices and regulations. And also, we would like to establish networks so that each one of us will benefit from OTEA. This is our third OTEA monthly meeting. To ensure the quality of our program, please mute your microphone during the entire time. Our administrator behind the scene, Dr. Minhong Chen, will record the first part of the event. Should you find this presentation interesting, or you'd like to invite your friends and colleagues to join our next program, this recording will be saved on the OTEA website, official website. Our moderator today, Mr. Tony Shen, will introduce our speaker, Mr. Wen Huang, after this opening remarks. You may either enter your question on the sidebar, we have on chat, or hold your question until we have a Q&A session. It is our wishes to make this event as interactive as possible. Let's welcome our moderator today, Mr. Tony Shen. Tony received his Bachelor of Science degree from National Cheng Kung University in Taiwan and a master's degree from Cardiff University, United Kingdom in 2010. Unlike other engineers, Tony has a very unique education background with earned Master of Law degree from Chongyuan Christian University in Taiwan. He's a registered professional engineer in Taiwan and a charter member of Engineering New Zealand with more than 10 years experience in New Zealand, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. He specialized in structural steel, precast, in-situ reinforced concrete, and temporary work. Without further ado, I would like to turn off my speaker, the microphone, and turn the speaker to Tony. Tony will introduce our presentation and our speaker today. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Edward. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this third ODEA event. Today I'm today's moderator, Tony Shen, and I based on Auckland, New Zealand. I would like to introduce today's speaker, Wen Huang. He is based on USA. His qualification is he graduated from National Taiwan University 1994, and he went to UC Berkeley on 1996, and from 1998 until now, he is working in the USA. So basically, he has more than 23 years working experience overseas, and he his expertise is construction management, project management, and he has intensive experience in transit rail and seismic retrofit highways and bridges. Um, so today he will introduce the he will introduce the USA construction project organization and the civil engineer career path in the USA. So now, please, I pass my. So let's welcome our speaker today, Wen Huang.
Hi. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Edward. Hello from California, everyone. Please show a thumb up if you can hear me. Oh, okay, good. And let me take over the screen. So, okay, you can put down your thumb. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Oops. Is that taking over? Okay. Okay, please show me another thumb up if you can see the presentation on your screen. Okay, good. Yeah, so thank you. Again, like they had mentioned that I'm Wen Huang. I'm honored and excited to be today's speaker. I hope that you can find today's topic useful, especially for those that still in school or aspire to work overseas, including United States. It's after 8 o'clock Saturday night here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So the sun was just set and hurry over Pacific Ocean to Asia. So let's get started. First, in today's presentation, I will spend the 20 plus minutes to go over my CM construction management career path, mainly in public transportation and building projects for your reference of today's topic. I will go over a typical organizational chart and job functions for construction projects with the construction management team in the middle to bridge the owner's need and the contractor's means and methods and turn the planner's idea and designer's specs and drawings into reality. Then I will provide my observation of the US job market and a little advice on working as a civil engineer or construction management in the United States. After my one-way presentation, Tony and I will have our two-way conversation about US or New Zealand job markets. And then we will take verbal questions or text messages from the audience. So everybody will get an A or pass at the end. So no worry about failing today's presentation. First, I would like to use myself as an example, and I think Tony already covered most of the slide for me, so that'll save me a few minutes. And you will find, and then I think every one of you will find your own path, that will work better for you. But this is just an example. And on this slide, with a lot of stuff of information in my that I did in the past 27 years, I would like you to focus more on the description in green. Don't get hung up with the what schools I went to or what companies I have worked for. The green text actually emphasize the preparation for my study and work in the United States step by step. I graduated from college in Taiwan about 27 years ago. During my 4-year study there, I was active in participating in extracurricular activities, such as being the president of the Civil Engineering Student Association and climbing mountains in Taiwan during summer and winter breaks. As a senior during my last year of college, I interned as a research assistant in a private foundation for Taiwan construction industry research and development. While my classmates were busy preparing for exams to get to graduate schools in Taiwan, I already made up my mind and prepared for the and took the pretty mind-boggling GRE exam. And with a score that's valid for 5 years. That's why I started much earlier than I actually left Taiwan for my study. And then as you can see on the screen, those 4 green areas are actually important components to be considered if you plan to study in a graduate school in the US. They are considered as part of the admission requirements. And also after graduating from college, I served 2 years in Taiwanese military. I prepared and took the TOEFL language exam that's also required for U.S. graduate school admission. I researched and submitted, received admissions. I ended up deciding to go to UC Berkeley for my master's degree in construction management. It's a one-year program with the completion of at least 24 units. And almost as soon as I started as a graduate student with F1 student visa, I almost had to start my preparation for job applications since I will enter the job market in less than a year, because that's just a one-year program. So I had to update my resume, sign up with the on-campus interview, and also I also received the approved optional practical training, which allows the foreign nationals to work in the United States after 1 year of the graduate, within 1 year after the graduation. However, I was hired by Hilti World Headquarters to start my work in Taiwan during the first 8 months of my practical training. So I actually went back to Taiwan for 8 months. But after working there for 8 months, it's quite a good experience for me. But I kind of feel like my study in the U.S. was a little bit short. It's only 1 year. So I decided to come back to U.S. To look for a job while my practical training would expire in about 4 months. So I landed a job with a small consulting firm.
Okay. I think we have some technical issues here. Okay, so when we are waiting for Wen Huang, I just like to talk about what happened in New Zealand, because I'm based on New Zealand. And 2017, I finished my previous project, which was in Hong Kong. And I decided to immigrate to New Zealand because I found the engineering New Zealand, they accept the Taiwan APEC engineer to apply their chartership. So this is one of the reasons why I immigrate to here. So since 2017 and until now, I work for a local main contractor, which is different from Wen Huang, because I think when he is working for the client. So basically we are at opposite side, but we need to cooperate to each other. Since because when we are waiting for him, recently in New Zealand, if you want to become like a charter member of Engineering New Zealand, basically you need to become a Taiwan APEC engineer first. That is the first requirement to apply to become a charter member of Engineering New Zealand. But that is a very, very basic requirement. The other thing you need to have is the local working experience, which I believe that is the most difficult challenge or barrier for the foreigners, because first you don't have. Take me for example, I do not have any local qualification because I graduate from Taiwan, and so I need to prove, I need to convince the Engineering New Zealand I have sufficient local experience, because the building code and some design standard is quite different. Let's take the building standard for example. I believe in Taiwan, most of or 80% of the building was built by reinforced concrete or structural steel. However, in New Zealand, they use a lot of timber, which basically I never learned about any timber structure when I was at university. So I spent a lot of time self study, or I ask some local engineer like Victor. Um, he he's he's much more familiar with New Zealand. Okay,
I'm
welcome
back.
back.
I'm back. I'm back. Can you guys hear me all right? Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Either I lost the whole world or the whole world lost me. And that's the reason our president need to spend $3.5 billion to improve the infrastructure in the United States. Where did you guys hear me the last time? Was that on this slide or the previous slide?
Yeah, you were on this one and just talked about your green card.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's a sensitive information that the U.S. government doesn't allow me to share across the Pacific Ocean. Okay, let's get back to business. Okay, so I landed a job with a small consulting firm, right, while working on the major construction, and I was on H-1B visa with different firms. And then after getting my green card, I have more freedom to change jobs and firms. And then the time between the U.S. green card and the citizenship was about 5 years. And I worked with many private consulting firms, from the small firm to the #1 consulting firm in the world at that time, and then work on the software startup for a couple of years, on the contractor side for a couple of years, and then also working as a public employee with the city of San Francisco for a couple of years. And then through this experience, I kind of expanded my professional area in construction management and project management experience in many types of the construction, including the public transit, roadway and bridges, and the building seismic retrofit. And also, I also acquired the professional licenses, as is shown on the screen. I'm the registered civil engineer in California, which is almost required if you need to run the construction project. And also, based on my specialty, I also have a license as a certified construction manager. So that was issued by CMAA. Okay, and then good. That's the slide can move on to the next one. So that's good. Before I move on to explain the construction project organization in the U.S., I would like to show those real faces in my current project. The project owner is Bart, Bay Area Rapid Transit. It's like a Taipei MRT, serving the residents and commuters in the San Francisco Bay Area for almost 50 years. So their infrastructure getting aging and require update or replacement. So my project is going to replace a total of 41 escalators in 4 downtown San Francisco stations. This picture was taken in a ribbon cutting ceremony about 3 weeks ago, where we returned the first one of the 41 units back to service. And so you can see many members of the project team attended, from the contractors, field mechanics, to the BARS director. And as you know, for construction project of large scale, it took a village to build a major project. And in the photo, you can also see the diversities in the team, which is something that I will cover in the later slide. Okay, and then this is the organizational chart from BART, my current client, BART's latest RE resident engineer manual. Resident engineer, commonly abbreviated as RE, is the owner's representative. He or she leads a team of the construction management professionals, including inspectors in the field performing quality assurance on the contractor's installation, and the office staff, like assistant RE, office engineers, schedulers, reviewing the contractor's documentation and performing contract administration. And the RE reports to the project manager and the upper management, right? Whoever is above the project manager, dependent on their level of authority. And the RE office is also supported by the owner staff and consultants who have worked on the project from inception to completion. And most of the time require input from the operation and maintenance staff as well. And then as you can see, some of the terminologies are quite self-explanatory, but I'll pick up a few terminology that could be new to somebody, like the Office of Civil Rights. Office of Civil Rights is something that BAR has is to enforce the contract compliance with laws, regulations, funding requirements or contract requirements. And they work with the attorneys, that's also hired by the owner, and then put out the contract language together and then enforce that. And then the other departments are quite self-explanatory, so I'm not going to spend too much time defining each one of them. And since this is a construction project, it's also important to talk about the contractors part of the organization. As you can see that the construction project manager will lead a team of the subcontractors, material suppliers, vendors that provides services like material testing, traffic control, or hazardous materials abatement. The contractor scheduler prepares a baseline schedule and schedule update for RE's review and approval. And the contractor's estimator prepares bids, right? During the bid time, cost proposals when they need to work on change orders and or progress payment applications. And the contractor designer prepares shop drawings and other proposed design documents. In some design build project, the contractor's designer is actually play a very important role. They actually leading the design effort for putting out the design details and package for the owner's review and approval. And certainly the contractor also need to hire a safety manager, quality control managers performing all these important duties on their installation. So on the next slide, I would like to quickly go over my career path in chronological order to give you some idea of on the construction management field, what kind of positions that you may encounter when you work in a CM organization. So start with my first job as an office engineer, which is the entry-level position with BART. As I mentioned, that's a new airport extension to a new airport 23 years ago. I actually have two small stories to share about my first job as office engineer. Getting this office engineer job from that project. The first story is about the impression before interview. It's a really odd terminology. Right? Why would you have an impression before interview? Because this is why I have this very unique story. Because I didn't want to be late for my interview, right? So I arrived at the interview location almost 1 hour early. While waiting in front of the office, I practiced my interview skills again and again in my car. And then that when time was up, then I entered the building. When I stepped into the interview room, one person in the interview panel actually suddenly spoke up and said, "Oh, I recognize you. You were the guy sitting in the car and talking to yourself with a very serious look." So that person actually turned out to be a supervisor that I worked with in the next 2 years. So I guess sometimes the serious manner worked out as a good impression to him. And then the second story about my first job in the U.S. is that developing on-job skills under pressure when needed. My first job there was to implement a construction management document control software called Expedition. That's installed for project staff about 50 people. And I did not know anything about that software before I was tasked to do the work. But I hesitated to say I don't know to my supervisors. So I just say, okay, I know it. I can handle that. So I say yes to the task, and then I took the 500-page user guide home that night, and then study overnight. Almost didn't find any time to sleep, and then came back next day as an expert in the whole office to install the software and also make a presentation on how to use it. So that was quite an interesting experience I'd like to share with some of you, especially for students or a new engineer. That's one way to impress people, not only for your boss, but impress people working around you. In the next 5 years, I was assigned to work on perform different functions within the CM organization for a highway construction project in the Silicon Valley, which is Santa Clara County. And then there was some tough time. I had to walk through as a field inspector every night for 3 months in a row. My family almost abandoned me for doing that, but that's my job, and at least I bring the paycheck home, which is important to my wife at that time. So I survived that ordeal, and then moving on to perform different functions within that project. And then I really learned a lot about the construction methods through that really hard work in the field. So I think the experience with those positions prepared me well to undertake greater responsibilities down the road. So don't be afraid to take on challenges whenever you're given an opportunity to do so. Then after that, then I was promoted to be the RE for a small project working on the upgrading the ETS system, something like ETS system for 2 toll bridges in the Bay Area. And then after that, that was a small project, so I finished like in 6 months. After that, then my supervisor, my company supervisor, actually asked me whether I would be interested in working on a different type of the construction project. Again, that's railroad. Being the RE on the railroad project is quite different from highway construction. So I hesitated, but then I still decided to tough it out and then take on that challenges. So and try to survive it. So it actually turned out to work out for me, since my area of expertise is not pigeonholed into a certain area, and I have more exposure to other type of project, and which is also something I learned in my career path. And then when you are more experienced and confident in managing some projects, and your project gets bigger and more complex, and I have an opportunity to managing some change order work on a major project, design build project on the contractor side for a couple of years. And then also when I was the resident engineer for some project, then I was involved with some marketing proposal with AECOM at that time. So I was helping my supervisor put up the marketing proposal for our construction management consulting services. And then when I was a consultant to the city of San Francisco, they actually talked me into accepting the offer as a city employee, as a project manager and RE for a project that actually shut down the 3 light rail lines in the city. It's very high-profile project, and it's quite stressful because we shut down 3 light rail lines in 2 months, and the whole city was watching us. And I have to go to the San Francisco City Council to report the progress. And this other, and then dealing with the city politics is quite stressful in a sense. And then sometimes that's something you have to do if you move up the ladder and have to deal with politics related to construction project. And my most recent project is actually helped me taking a break from that kind of stress. So I'm pretty happy about my current project with my client when I move back to the consultant world. Okay, so on this slide, I would like to go over a little bit on the U.S. civil engineering overview. Since I wasted a few minutes on this internet disconnection, so I will wrap it up as quickly as I can. Some of them are quite straightforward to everybody. Education degree to start career. The U.S. statistics shows that the 43% of the civil engineer jobs require bachelor degree, and 26 degree requires master degree. So those bachelor or master degree are mostly in the engineering design, architecture, or management fields. Although the other 31% has a much lower entry barrier. As you can see in the construction side, someone with a high school diploma can actually perform a pretty good job especially on the contractor side. So that's no surprise there. It's just a different field, different specialty and different interest. And but as a civil engineer in the U.S., especially in California, or more specifically in Silicon Valley, I've been living with a lot of software engineer in this area, right? Our starting salary may not be as high as those high-tech IT professional, but after we gain 20 years of experience, those experience actually stay with us, and it will not become a burden on our qualification to look for another job. It actually helps us. Versus software engineer is actually they are always under constant pressure of updating the language they learn. The technology advanced so fast in the IT industry that it actually make their life very stressful after you pass the middle age. Like someone in the 40s, their job security certainly is not as good as a civil engineer in the area. So I almost like to make a comparison that civil engineer is like, it's a steady job. You won't strike rich, but certainly you won't like some IT professional, like they are like a professional sports football player. They only have about maybe 10, 15 years of prime time. After that, they just get retire from the job market very quickly than what they plan to. And then in terms of the job sectors, we are looking about 60% in the private sector, 30% in public sector, and 10% in academia. The 30% public sector is that makes the civil engineer has some feature that it's very easy for us to find a job anywhere in the country, right? Including a very remote town. They also need a civil engineer for road, bridges, or the water dam, power station. So it's very easy to find a job, especially after the retirement of the baby boomers, and also the aging infrastructure since World War II. So the job market for civil engineers is actually looking quite promising in the next few decades. And also when it comes to the job search, people ask about, okay, what website can I post my resumes? Right? I list quite a few popular websites here, but and you can certainly log in those websites to find out, okay, what kind of qualifications are required for what kind of positions, and those would be used as a pretty good reference. But for me, the number one most effective way of getting hired is actually the employee referral, which is quite popular among the employers because for them it's less risky and then with a more credible reference by the employee that's already working for the company. So getting to know somebody that's already working with some company that you like to work for certainly helps. And I already covered the topic of permit to work. If you are interested in knowing more, we can talk about that in the Q&A. And salaries and compensation, that's also what I plan to cover, through the maybe through the interview session with Tony. And professional licenses, some licenses, as you can see, are quite popular, either famous nationwide, or some of them it's quite unique in certain field, like my CCM, that's a construction management field. And some of the certification are quite popular among inspectors, for concrete instruction, ACI, or for the post-tension bridge, PCI certification. And then if you have a NACE, which is a certification for like a painting on the structural steel bridge, something like that. So it depends on your career choice as an engineer or as an inspector. And then there are some a professional organization that you may want to be affiliated with, and including the famous one, ASCE. And then in my construction management field, we have CCMA, and OTEA certainly has even broader reach than some of the organization. And PMI, if you are the professional management, then that could be something that you want to be associated with. And then with your professional license and affiliation, not only that will help you to land on the job for your job search, but also for your advancement in your personal career or professional knowledge. Those are quite beneficial. And also, it will also help your company, especially if you are in a private consulting business, that will help your company market your qualification and get more jobs down the road. So since we are in a people business, right? So it's all about qualifications. And on the last slide, I would like to just provide a few advice that I have after my 20 plus years of experience working in the United States. First is that make up your mind and start your preparation early. As you can see, it takes time to prepare, to better prepare exams or beef up your qualification for, school admissions or job hires. So start your preparation early. Second one is the language. I think it's a common barrier that a lot of people consider. Especially, we are not a native speaker, right? So we always have accent when we speak. No matter how many years that you live in English-speaking country, it's really hard to get rid of. But I think that especially when it comes to technical writing or presentation skill, we really cannot get rid of the accent. But we will try to supplement it with our familiarity of the contract specs, code requirements, and believe me, those knowledge will come in handy when you need to host a meeting or negotiate a deal. So you want to supplement with other knowledge, if you are afraid of your English capability. And certainly you like to know your strengths and contribute as a team player. Other than what I mentioned about, getting familiar with the contract languages, most of people with our background tend to perform well in math analysis or just the use of the software program like Excel. So certainly your capability on those can help you to be more resourceful and to be a problem solver, that everybody likes to keep you around. And then the next advice is that when you do become a manager, it's important that you listen and take advice from people working with you, and be responsive and avoid micromanaging, especially in the United States. Everybody has their own personality. And next one is also the important one. Since the U.S. is a big melting pot, especially in a metropolitan area with a lot of immigrants and liberal movements, you always need to be sensitive to races, genders, religions, ages, and each individual's choices of their life. And the next one is have fun. Have fun with your work and life, and keeping really balanced. And when you work in the U.S., you are less likely to feel guilty while taking a vacation from a U.S. job, because most people really appreciate a clear division between life and work. At least that's all the firms that I have worked with. As long as you perform well, I think you can feel comfortable about taking off, and because the project will move on with or without you. But certainly with your participation, that'll be more beneficial. And last but not least, I would like to send a few words to young engineers or students. Is that when you sincerely work hard to accomplish something, the world gets your back. Gets your back means the world will provide support to you. And I know a lot of you are still exploring your career path. Don't be afraid of taking challenges, whether it's a technical challenge, a language challenge, or cultural. You will encounter some cultural shock along the way. But once you have the courage and the preparation to step across the bridge into the unknown, you will find out your world has no limits, and then most likely the world is prettier on the other side of the bridge. So that's my section. And again, sorry for being AWOL for about 5 minutes. So I hope we don't waste too much time on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Wen. So now we are going to do interview and the Q&A. Yeah. So the first thing we talk about, can we talk about I think the most important thing is about work and life balance. I think compare with, because I was working in Taiwan, and in my perspective, I think work and life balance in New Zealand is quite bad. It's quite better than Taiwan. Um, yeah, I think the most important thing is you basically you don't need to afraid of leave your work on time. Let's say if you start your work by 8 and you finish at 5, and if you finish on 5, you can leave even like 4:45 to avoid traffic. You know. But however, I don't think many engineers in Taiwan they can leave on time. They need to work like, oh, I supposed to leave on 5, but I need to stay in the office until 7. What do you think in the US?
Well, we have sometimes we have a tough decision, right? Sometimes sometimes you have to step up and take it for the team, right? And sometimes the contractor would require to work at nights or work on weekends. And like what I mentioned, when I was an inspector, when I was a junior inspector, I had to step up to the plate and then take some shift that's not so popular, but sometimes it turned out to be very rewarding experience to me, because I get to work with contractor in the middle of the freeway, and then getting to know their tips and tricks, and then people appreciate more. I mean, I would say 90% of the people that I work with, they appreciate your contribution to the team. And then people wants to be part of the successful story, right? Nobody wants to be a part of failure. So they will feel like they feel like surrounding with people that's dedicated to their work and willing to contribute. Certainly makes their life easier. So I would say that just it's just something when you do your part, and then when you have to take away from your when you have to take a break from your job, I think people can understand because we got each other's back and we cover each other's work.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I think, yeah, in New Zealand, when I mean, I can take annual leave as long as I notify my supervisor in advance, and basically the company will arrange someone to cover my work during my annual leave if I need to leave, like if I need to back to Taiwan for 6 weeks or 4 weeks minimum.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that I think that this part is quite good. Another thing is about the language barrier, because we are not English native speaker, and so do you have any tip? I mean, when you work, when you are doing your when you are doing your work, how do you overcome the language barrier? Let me, for example, when I receive a phone call from my subcontractor or the consultant or the client, ask me some questions, and sometimes because um, it's very hard to us to understand at the first place. It is easier to understand when we have some drawing, and when we have some something to watch or to see. So do you have any tips? I mean, to overcome the language barrier?
Well, when it comes to language barrier, I think there are two folds. First time when you start working in a foreign country, right? You'll find out the first wave of your barrier is actually the language, right? You don't know their terminology that well, like the phone call that you get from the contractor because they use their lingos, the terminology they use for their job, right? So it could be something not a terminology that you can find in a textbook. So when he mentions something, some kind of nuts, some kind of bolts, and then it may turn out to be something that you never heard of. And I think in that case, I would just ask him to clarify, because I certainly don't want to sign off on something that I don't understand. So I will either ask him to send out a picture, or I would just, based on what I heard, I'll Google it. I'll Google the picture on the construction methods, or Google on the product introduction, and sometimes it turned out to be quite useful. And then like the story I shared earlier, after you educate yourself, then the next day you will go back to the office and become an expert. So that's for the language barrier in like in a work environment, right? And sometimes I find out for the technical terminology, it's actually quite easy to handle, much easier to handle than the cultural barrier. Like if your coworkers that meet you in a water fountain, right, and in a cooler around the break room, and then they ask you about, okay, what you did last night. Sometimes you find out that topic is actually more stressful if you try to socialize with them, right? Sometimes you just, because you don't understand all the cultural background, or you did not follow some type of sports very closely, and then when they brought something up to you, and then that was kind of, you feel like you're hitting a wall. But again, then when you go back to home, maybe you do some Googling and trying to educate yourself. If you still choose to have that conversation with your coworker, then that's one way to do it. And sometimes it's okay. It's okay not to be part of somebody's story, or engage in every conversation. So you just need to make your choice there.
So can I say your tip is, if you don't know something, you don't know something, just ask, or do the homework. Don't pretend you know everything.
That's right. That's right. And
Oh,
you'll find out that the same thing, right? Since we are some of us are quite academic, right? And we may use some terminology that the contractor doesn't use. Contractor just don't use that terminology. If they don't ask you, they build something that end up being wrong or require rework, then nobody is the winner in that situation. So I would just ask them upfront, instead of trying to guess.
Okay, I see. That's since we got 5 minutes left, so I need to ask you some questions from the people who attend this seminar today. So first one is Wen Huang. Have you met anyone working in the U.S. who got hired directly from Taiwan without U.S. degree? I think the degree here it means qualification.
Yes, educational degree is certainly something it's not a number one consideration by employer, but that could be the barrier if you want to file a work visa. Whether it's a work visa or you file your green card, because as you know, U.S. immigration policy change every time, and sometimes it gets tightened, gets tougher, and then they will require more stringent review of your educational background. So in that case, I seldom heard that somebody without a U.S. degree getting hired in the United States, unless they are sent over by a Taiwanese or Taiwan-based contractor or firms with some specialty, right? Like if a TSMC wants to build the fab, foundry in the state of Arizona, certainly they will fly a whole bunch of people, engineer from Taiwan, whether it's an electrical engineer or civil engineer. So in that case, I think certainly they have a better position to directly work in the United States by passing the educational requirement. I just seldom find that to be the case as a civil engineer. Most likely in software engineer, because I've run into some software engineer working in the Silicon Valley that actually did not have a degree, computer science degree in the United States, but they actually got hired directly overseas, because it's all about the job market. That job market was in a very high demand.
Okay. Okay. We have so many questions. Okay. I think next one is okay. So I think I choose this one. Today's speech is really motivated to young civil engineers like me. Some of my friends would like to ask if APAC engineers have the chance to work in the US without US study background. If you know some successful cases, could you share to us?
Actually, APAC, I heard about the APAC engineer, but I'm not quite familiar with that area, because most of engineer that I work with, they just spell out PE next to their name, but that PE actually means the licensed professional engineer in the state of California. And sometimes it could be a geotechnical engineer, structural engineer, but they all spell out that way. I have seldom seen somebody with the APAC engineer acronym next to their name.
Okay. 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 Next one is what is the advice for student engineers in Taiwan of no chance to study abroad but eager to work in state? What are some challenges worked in state? How to deal with those?
Well, I would say, like the example that I picked earlier, right? If you work with some Taiwanese company that has an overseas operation, whether it's a TSMC or RSEA, Longgongchu, like they have an overseas operation, right? So you may be able to be assigned to work overseas. I'm not sure about US, but certainly I know RSC, they have a lot of operations overseas in Asia. So that there could be some overseas opportunities there. And also working with some Japanese or Korean based companies, they are also quite visible in some major construction projects. So I've heard some, or there was one time that Samsung, they have a branch, right? Samsung is a Korean company. They actually have a branch in construction they try to develop some business operation for high speed rail in California. They were trying to hire somebody, but it all depends. I think right now nowadays internet is very provides you very transparent information. You can Google it, and then like what I mentioned, those job searching websites. Some of them you will find out that to be quite useful. Either you can find you can get hold of somebody with that qualification, asking how they get hired, working in the Middle East or in the United States, or some when you post your qualification online, some job hunter may with your specialty they may contact you, ask your interest in working some projects in the US or overseas.
Okay. So thank you very much, Wen. That is time's up. I'm sorry we have so many questions. I cannot ask when all of it. I'm sorry about this. Okay, okay. So I Edward, it's your turn now.
Hey, before you move on, Edward, I think what we can do is that we can just copy all the questions, and then we can try to answer that in writing, and then post it on the OTEA Facebook website. Is that something that we can do?
Awesome idea.
Okay. So yeah, I know time is limited, but certainly we can try to answer questions in writing afterwards.
Absolutely. We are so glad um, we get together today. I'm sure we have a lot of unanswered questions, and I'm sure we will have other times and even use the official website to help our viewers. Let's thank our speaker and the moderator today. I'm sure everybody learned a lot and hope this program benefit your career and fulfill what you expect. Would like to learn. If you would like to learn more, please join us later on. We will have chat room set up after the meeting adjourn. Before we end this virtual meeting, we have a few announcements to make. We would like to introduce our speaker for the next activity. Dr. Min Hong Chen will give a presentation on becoming a charter engineer and working in Australia from a native Taiwanese perspective. And Dr. Chen, would you like to say something?
Thanks, Edward. Yeah, hello everyone. Happy Middle Moon Festival. Next month, I will give a presentation talking about my working experience and some review. Something I think is different from my experience in Taiwan, what I see in Australia to share with everyone. So hopefully that will be helpful. But I don't think I can do a better presentation than Wen today did.
All right.
Thanks, Edward.
Okay.
You're being modest.
Yeah. What's unique about Min Hong is that he does not have an Australian degree, but he got Australian professional charter engineer certificates. And also, please fill out the post-event survey after we're done with today's program. We want to make our program better each time. And if for those of you who would like to receive a training certificate, please send your request to info@ota.network. We're also looking for more members. Now, keep in mind the membership fee is $0. We have not decided how much we're going to charge or when to start charging the membership fee. So take advantage of this window. Please help us to recruit more member for OTEA. Last but not the least, as you can see from the screen, the 2021 virtual Taiwan Job Fair in the US is happening as we speak. Please send your applications and check more information on the website. They're accepting, actually, this program was sponsored by Taitra, Taiwan Trade Association, Taiwan Trade Center. The job interview will start from September 1st to 30th. Please check the website on the screen. I was told that TSMC is also part of the employers that they're looking for engineers. So make sure you mark your calendar and look at the website. Without further ado, we're going to adjourn today's meeting. However, should you decide to continue, our chat room will be open to everyone. Thank you very much. Happy Moon Festival to everyone.
Happy